With Carol Ann Ford leaving Doctor Who at the end of the Dalek invasion of Earth, they needed a replacement for Susan, and fast. So producer Verity Lambert and script editor David Whittaker came up with a new character, with a new backstory to be introduced in the next story. They were able to set aside 2 episodes in the production schedule to make a short introduction before moving on. Welcome back to Doctor Who Change, where we will look at the first changing of companions from Susan to Vicky, and the production change of script editor from David Whittaker to Dennis Spooner in The Rescue. The Rescue was written by David Whittaker, directed by Christopher Barry, produced by Verity Lambert, and originally broadcast on Saturdays from the 2nd to the 9th of January, 1965. Let's begin with Part 1, The Powerful Enemy. We open on a planet where the TARDIS materializes. Cut to a crashed spaceship where a signal showing the TARDIS comes in. Vicky, played by Maureen O'Brien, rushes in and notices that it must be the rescue ship. She rushes to tell Bennett, played by Ray Barrett, who is speculative because it wasn't due for another 3 days. He says to radio the ship to see where it is and warns to watch out for Coquillion and not to let Coquillion know of the rescue ship's coming. She goes outside to the communications console to call and calls out on the radio to see if the rescue ship has landed. It replies that they know that it'll still be 69 hours away and breaks contact quickly, telling them that in about 24 hours they'll regain contact to start landing. She's curious on what could possibly be on the mountains then if it's not the rescue ship. Meanwhile, in the TARDIS, Barbara and Ian think they've landed and wake the Doctor up. He's surprised that they've materialized so quickly, and he turns off the power and checks everything. He turns on the scanner and shows that they're in a cave, and they decide to go outside. He calls to Susan, but realizing she's left, he has Barbara open the doors. They go outside and smell something strange. The Doctor goes back inside to have a nap, while Barbara and Ian look around. Ian is concerned for the Doctor's health because he's never slept through a landing and he hasn't been sleeping well, and he hands him a rock as samples. Barbara just says that he's trying to get over Susan because she left recently. They both wonder what Susan is doing right now, and they wander off while behind the TARDIS is a creature played by Sidney Wilson, or at least that's who it's credited to, who follows them. They make it to an opening where they see the crashed ship, and Ian thinks that it was destroyed with a city that's on the ground. Ian wants to go and investigate to see if anyone needs help, and he decides to go back to get the Doctor, but then the creature corners them from behind and questions them about where they are and what they came from. It says Ian should fetch the Doctor from their craft so they could take it to the city, and when Ian leaves, it pushes Barbara down the cliff. In the TARDIS, the Doctor realizes that they've landed on Dido, and he looks forward to meeting the natives again. While outside, the creature causes a rock slide, making Ian fall unconscious. The Doctor rushes in and helps him up, and they go to look for Barbara using the other way around the cave. They can't because they can't shift the rocks, and Ian explains that the creature caused the slide. The Doctor explains that it must be a native, but for some reason it wasn't peaceful like the other natives. They get up to go find another way out, with the Doctor explaining that the Didoans were always friendly people, especially when they had visitors from other planets. Vicky is in the ship looking over things when the creature comes in and demands her to stay within 50 yards of the ship, because it saw her dragging something back, but she explains that it was only rocks. It is Coquillion, and it goes to talk to Bennett. She asks what landed, and Coquillion explains that it was warriors, and it threatens her with a stick, and goes on to speak with Bennett. Vicky has hidden Barbara under her sheets and tells her to keep quiet while Coquillion is in Bennett's room. She explains that Coquillion keeps them here, and it saved them from an explosion that killed everyone on the ship, including Vicky's family. Barbara says says that they have a TARDIS to get away, although she thinks that the Doctor and Ian are dead. The Doctor and Ian are making their way through the cave, while the Doctor wonders about what could have changed the peaceful Didoans into vicious killers. Back on the ship, Vicky tends to Barbara's wounds and is nervous about if the rescue ship will actually come, but she insists that she's fine when Bennett hobbles out of his room because he was injured in the explosion, to tell Vicky that Coquillion has murdered the people on the mountain, and Vicky saying not all of them shows him Barbara, who is of course alive and well. Back in the caves, the ledge that the Doctor and Ian were on narrows out, so Ian shines the torch down to the bottom of the chasm, and they have to keep themselves against the rock. At the bottom of the pit is an animal that growls and is also trapped in there with them because it usually is used to daylight. Ian grabs a handle on the wall and is able to get across using some handles, but one falls out as he gets across, which causes spikes to start slowly coming out towards him, pushing Ian towards the edge, either letting him fall into the pit with the creature or be severed on the extremely sharp spikes. This leads into part 2, Desperate Measures, where Ian is able to carefully climb over the blades, and he and the doctor try to get the handhold back into its place. Bennett has collapsed, and Barbara and Vicky are tending to him. Bennett wakes up and tells him that her friends are dead, and Barbara thinks that they could surprise Coquillion and overcome him. But Bennett says that it would never work, and Barbara and Vicky help him into his bed. Vicky then goes to collect water, and Barbara set the table for dinner. The doctor and Ian are able to get the handhold back into the place, which makes the spikes go back into the wall, and they're able to leave this area. Barbara takes out the flare gun as defense, while the doctor and Ian have found daylight and they're heading towards it. The animal from inside the caves watches Vicky collect the water, and Barbara takes the flare gun and shoots it, thinking that it would harm her, but it's actually her pet. The doctor and Ian hear it and go towards the noise. It was Vicky's pet, which she killed, the only friend that she had, so Vicky, of course, breaks down. The doctor and Ian walk into the spaceship and meet up with Barbara and Vicky. The doctor cheers Vicky up, and Ian says not to worry about Cocky Lickin' because he has a gun, and she says that the rescue ship will be there soon, and she's terrified that they won't be able to get away. The doctor then talks to her in private about how they're all going to get out of this, and then he should talk with Bennett, and she takes him to his door. She tells the doctor that she doesn't like Barbara because she killed her pet. The doctor says that she was just frightened on what would happen, so Vicky goes to make amends. He then knocks but gets a "you can't come in." Ian and Barbara return, and Vicky apologizes for the way she acted, and Barbara apologizes for pulling the trigger. They explain that they left Earth in 1963, while Vicky left in the year 2493, which she finds impossible because Ian and Barbara would have to be 550 years old. Barbara explains that it was the doctor who had the time travel capabilities, and they all share a laugh. The doctor, being fed up with not getting an answer from Bennett, breaks into his room, which he finds empty, with a pre-recorded message saying that they can't come in, and signals coming from the other room. So he listens to their conversation in the other room and finds a trapdoor on the floor. Ian follows into Bennett's room, but he doesn't get an answer, so he bursts in, finding it empty. The doctor is below the ship in the caves where he finds a temple. There's also a case full of clothes down there. Ian and Barbara wonder what they should do, so they decide to head back to the TARDIS. In the temple, the doctor meets with Coquillion. The doctor explains that they are in the Hall of Justice for the Didoans, and that the costume that Bennett's wearing is only worn for special occasions. So Bennett takes off the Coquillion costume and explains that he killed a crew member on the ship and made them crash. He then killed all of the natives and made Vicky think he saved them, because she wasn't present for most of this. The doctor then attacks him, and two Didoans that survived the genocide corner Bennett, and when he tries to escape, he falls down into the pit. On the TARDIS, the doctor wakes up and explains that Bennett was Coquillion and is dead. He asks about where Vicky is, saying that he wants to have a talk with her. She's outside, and Barbara secretly wishes to take Vicky with them. Outside, the doctor explains what happened to Vicky, who is left a complete orphan now. He then asks if she would like to come with them, saying they could go anywhere with the assurance of an abundance of adventure, showing how much he's grown since his first appearance in An Earthly Child. He goes inside to let her think it over. Inside, Barbara and Ian ask the doctor if Vicky could come in and stay with them, and the doctor calls her in to ask her to see what she would say herself, and says she'd gladly come. On the ship, the rescue ship calls in as the Didoans destroy the communications. The TARDIS then dematerializes from Dido, and the doctor wants to go somewhere restful. The TARDIS then materializes on a mountainside. It's on a cliff, and it falls off the edge before the doctor can take off again to safety. Next episode, The Slave Traders. Let's move on to the character review for Vicky. Vicky had a tough job being the first replacement companion being introduced in The Rescue and staying until the Mythmakers. She was an orphan who was terrorized by the only survivor of a crash in The Rescue that the Doctor came in and saved, taking her on many adventures. As a replacement for Susan, Vicky was much more interestingly characterized and acted more like an average smart teenage girl, but with more of a references to the contemporary culture of the 1960s being classics, because she was from the 25th century. She was much more enjoyable to watch develop than Susan and had much more of a character development arc. So all in all, I give Vicky 4 out of 5 stars. Final thoughts? The Rescue only set out to do one thing, and that was to introduce a new companion, and it actually was able to have a generally good story along with it. David Whittaker's script is paced very nicely over the 2 episodes, and gives the 2 new characters enough character for Bennett to be a threat in the one story, and Vicky to become a new companion and still have room to grow. I mean, there really isn't much else to say, especially for bad stuff, except that the pit creature looks like it was a recycled prop from the Daleks, and it still doesn't look very good when it moves, although because it looked like kind of like the pressurized lizard that was in the forest. So all in all, I give Doctor Who: The Rescue an 88% for being an enjoyable short story with great pacing, script, characters, villain, and introduction of a new companion, but bad-looking small side creature effect thing. I can wholly recommend this to anyone who wants to see more Hartnell without having to stop and take breaks in between, and was released on DVD in the Rescue and the Romans box set, released in all regions in 2011. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Doctor Who Change, where we will take a look at the ending of the original TARDIS crew in The Chase.